Hi there. I'd like you to take a moment and imagine this. You wake up on a summer morning, sunlight gently streaming through the window, and on your kitchen counter sits a colorful plate of fruit, chilled watermelon, a few slices of ripe mango, and some freshly peeled, sweet lychees. You look at it and think, what a perfect way to start the day. And honestly, your right, fruit has always been a symbol of freshness, nature, and health. But after more than 30 years of working with older adults, I've learned something important. Sometimes, what looks healthy isn't always good for our brain, especially if we don't know how to eat it the right way. One of my patients, she's around 68, lives alone, and absolutely loves fruit. She used to eat watermelon almost every night, thinking it helped her stay hydrated. But over time, she started forgetting her keys, leaving the stove on, and slowly even forgetting her own grandchild's name. That wasn't just aging. Those were early signs of memory decline, partly triggered by eating habits she thought were harmless. So, in today's video, I want to talk to you not as a doctor, but as a friend walking this journey of healthy living with you, about 10 types of fruit that could negatively affect your memory if you eat too much of them. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to help you understand what might be quietly impacting your brain and how you can still enjoy fruit in a smarter, more memory-friendly way. Are you ready? Let's get started. Let me start with a fruit that seems completely harmless. In fact, for many people, it's the symbol of summer, fresh, juicy, and perfect for cooling down. I'm talking about watermelon. I know, it probably sounds strange. Watermelon feels light, refreshing, not overly sweet like some other fruits. A lot of my patients, especially those living in the southern states where the heat never seems to end, often tell me, "Doc, it's just a little watermelon. It's good for me, right?" And my answer is always, it's not about eating or not eating. It's about how you eat it and how much. See, watermelon has a very high glycemic index. That means when you eat it, your blood sugar spikes up very quickly and then drops just as fast. It's like a roller coaster, thrilling in the moment, but not exactly friendly to your brain. Why does that matter? Because the brain, especially after 60, doesn't like surprises. It needs a steady stream of energy to function well. When your blood sugar swings wildly, the brain can't keep up. Over time, this puts a strain on the tiny blood vessels that feed the brain. Even worse, it's been linked to the buildup of beta-amyloid plaque, of the key factors in Alzheimer's disease. I remember a paciente, retired math teacher, about 72, came to me saying his brain felt foggy every afternoon. We talked, and it turned out he was eating half a watermelon every day at lunch to stay cool. After a small change, just a few slices after a proper meal, with some added protein, he felt noticeably sharper and more focused. We often think, it's fruit. Fruit is healthy, so I can eat as much as I want. But after 60, we have to be more thoughtful than that. I'm not telling you to stop eating watermelon. I love that feeling of biting into a cold, juicy slice on a hot day too. But I hope you'll remember this. Even good things without boundaries can do harm. If you're living with diabetes, insulin resistance, or even just noticing more forgetfulness than usual, then watermelon isn't quite as harmless as it seems. So treat it like a small gift, not a full meal. Enjoy it after a balanced meal with protein and healthy fats. This slows the sugar absorption. And never eat it on an empty stomach. We don't need to cut out watermelon. We just need to treat it like a good friend with respect, understanding, and clear boundaries. Do you remember the last time you had a sweet, juicy lychee? Maybe it was during the Lunar New Year, in a box of imported dried fruits. Or maybe one summer day, you stumbled upon a bag of fresh lychees at your local Asian market, bright red, bursting with juice, and so fragrant it stopped you in your tracks. I get it. I've been there too. But if you're over 60, I'd like you to pause for a moment and let me share something with you, not as a warning, but as someone who's seen too many regrets come a little too late. Lychees, that delicious fruit, can actually harm your brain if eaten in excess, especially on an empty stomach. Not because it's full of chemicals, no, but because lychee naturally contains a compound called hypoglycin AA, substance that can cause serious drops in blood sugar when eaten in large amounts, or when your body is already low on energy. I still remember a case from a few years ago. A 66-year-old gentleman came into my clinic tired, confused, and unable to speak clearly. His family said he had just eaten a little fruit to keep it light that morning. Turns out, that little fruit was a big plate of fresh lychees. We checked his blood sugar right away, and the results shocked the whole team. His glucose level had plummeted. He was in acute hypoglycemia, and if we hadn't treated him in time, he could have had a seizure, gone into a coma, or even suffered irreversible brain damage. You see, the aging brain is extremely sensitive to blood sugar swings. Too little sugar, brain cells starve. Too much sugar, blood vessels in the brain get damaged. And either way, it's you who suffers who've spent your whole life taking care of your family, your work, and forgot to take care of yourself. And that's not all. Lychee is also high in fructose, which contributes to chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and over time memory loss. Now, I'm not saying you have to give up lychees forever, but treat them like a luxurious dessert. Have just 3 to 5 fruits after a proper meal, never on an empty stomach. Because sometimes, the things we love the most are the ones we need to learn to love more wisely. And taking care of your memory, it begins with small choices like this. Now, I want to talk to you about a fruit that seems incredibly healthy. It's small, easy to eat, and often praised with the phrase, rich in antioxidants. I'm talking about cherries. If you've read articles about heart-healthy foods, chances are cherries made the list. And it's true, they're packed with anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants that help reduce inflammation and protect blood vessels. But this is what I want you to pay close attention to. Cherries are also high in natural sugars, especially fructose. And like I've mentioned earlier, when fructose is consumed in excess, it can quietly damage the brain over time. One of my patients, a retired schoolteacher, around 65, told me she loved cherries. She kept a small bowl next to her while reading or watching television. "It helps me avoid snacking on junk," she said with a smile. But over time, she started feeling scattered. She couldn't focus like before, forgot names of old students, even misplaced her glasses while they were sitting right on her head. Sound familiar? Have you ever had moments like that? We ran some tests and discovered she was in the early stages of prediabetes, something she'd never imagined because, in her words, "I only eat fruit, doctor, not sugar." But here's the truth. Fruit sugar, especially when eaten in large amounts, or by itself, can still spike blood sugar, fuel chronic brain inflammation, and even encourage the buildup of amyloid plaques, the brain junk, that's strongly linked to Alzheimer's disease. Now, I'm not saying cherries are bad. What I am saying is, like many sweet things in life, cherries should be enjoyed mindfully. If you're having a few cherries after a meal, as a small treat, no problem. But if you're eating them as your main snack, or munching on them throughout the day while watching television, working, or just out of habit, then you might be unknowingly creating blood sugar roller coasters that directly affect your memory, focus, and long-term clarity. So today, I invite you to take a step back, not to fear or give up food, but to learn how to be friends with it. And with cherries, treat them like an old friend. Meet occasionally, savor each moment, and know when it's time to say goodbye. Because after 60, protecting your memory might just start with a smaller bowl of cherries. We've talked about watermelon, lychee, and cherries. And now, I'd like us to pause and take a closer look at another fruit. One that shows up in almost every grocery store across America, especially during the summer. It's juicy, vibrant, orange-yellow, wonderfully fragrant, and very sweet. I'm talking about mangoes. I remember the first time one of my patients, Mr. John, 70 years old, from Florida, came in and said, "Doc, I've cut back on sugar, cut back on salt, but I still need a little joy, so I eat mangoes instead of cake." And honestly, I didn't blame him. Mangoes look like a smart choice. They're packed with vitamin C, vitamin A, and antioxidants. But the issue isn't what mangoes have, it's what they have too much of. Fructosia, a type of sugar that's processed almost entirely by the liver. When you're young, your body's efficient. Your liver's strong. Your insulin response is sharp. But after 60, things start slowing down. And if you're regularly consuming high amounts of fructose from sweet fruits like mangoes, your liver gets overwhelmed and starts converting the excess into visceral fat, raising your risk of insulin resistance. And as you may already know, insulin resistance isn't just pre-diabetes. It's also a silent underlying factor that contributes to cognitive decline and memory loss. Fructose can also lead to what we call brain fog. That strange, drifting feeling like your body's here but your mind is somewhere else. You can't focus. You forget what you were about to do. Sound familiar? A lot of people think that's just normal aging. But from my experience walking alongside hundreds of older adults, I can tell you, that's often the brain's first whisper, trying to tell you something's off. Now, this doesn't mean you have to break up with mangoes forever. But please, don't treat them like a daily snack. Enjoy mangoes the way you would a glass of wine. Just a little, at the right time, and never on an empty stomach. Try pairing them with some protein like Greek yogurt, or a few almonds. That way, the sugar absorbs more slowly, and you avoid the dangerous blood sugar spikes and crashes that can hurt an aging brain. Mangoes are sweet, but your memory, your clarity, that's even sweeter. And you deserve to keep that sweetness for a long time. One mindful choice at a time. Of course, I'm still here and thank you for staying with me through this journey. What I've shared with you today isn't meant to make you anxious. It's meant to give you choices. Small choices, really. But if you stay consistent with them, day by day, they can make a big difference for your memory and for your brain health. And now, we've come to a fruit that's quite different from the others. It's not juicy. It doesn't drip when you bite into it. But it's something many households keep in their pantry. Dried fruits like raisins, dates, dried apricots, and dried apples. Now, you might be thinking, it's just fruit, right? Plus, it's got fiber, and it's such a convenient snack. And you're not wrong. Dried fruits do contain fiber and some antioxidants. Bhutan, this is important when fruit is dried. Nearly all of its water is removed. That means the sugar inside becomes highly concentrated. Imagine this. A small handful of fresh grapes feels light, refreshing. But that same handful, when dried into raisin scan, contain 2 or even 3 times the sugar. So when you eat dried fruit, you're not just having fruit. You're essentially loading up on natural sugar in its most condensed form. I once treated a patient, MS Clara, 67 years old, who loved adding raisins to her oatmeal every morning. She told me, "It helps me stay regular, and it's healthier than eating pastries." But what she didn't know was that those raisins were causing her blood sugar to spike every morning. By lunchtime, she'd crash feeling tired, unfocused, and increasingly forgetful. One day, she left a pot of porridge cooking and completely forgot about it. It burned. And that wasn't a small mistake. Here's another layer. Many commercial dried fruits are treated with sulfatessa preservative that keeps them looking bright and extends shelf life. But for older, adults especially, those with sensitive immune systems or underlying health issues, sulfites can trigger low-grade chronic inflammation. And research now suggests this kind of inflammation is linked to several forms of dementia. So my advice is this. If you enjoy dried fruit, go for unsweetened, preservative-free options and keep your portions tiny. A few small pieces after a meal, paired with some protein or healthy fat, is far better than downing a whole bag on an empty stomach. You don't need to cut everything out to live well. You just need to know where the line is. And when that line is drawn with understanding and with love for yourself, it becomes the very thing that protects your memory, your clarity, and the dignity of your golden years, in a way that's both deep and lasting. Let's keep going, shall we? This time, I want you to imagine yourself walking through the grocery store. You turn a corner and see a colorful display of tropical fruits, bananas, mangoes, and right in the middle, one fruit stands out, soft, sweet, easy to eat, with a beautiful orange glow. That's papaya. Many of my patients love papaya. They say things like, "Doctor, it helps me stay regular. It's good for my digestion." And that's true. Papaya contains the enzyme papain and plenty of fiber, great for gut health. It's also rich in vitamin A, vitamin C, and antioxidants. But you know, every coin has two sides. And after 60, we need to start asking different questions. Questions like, is this good for my gut, but possibly harmful for my brain? Unfortunately, the answer can sometimes be yes. Why? Because papaya, like many tropical fruits, is naturally high in fructose. As I've mentioned earlier, excess fructose can silently fuel chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and the buildup of harmful compounds in the brain called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. Research shows these AGEs slowly accumulate in brain tissue, damage neurons, disrupt communication between cells, and over time may even help form the sticky plaques linked to Alzheimer's disease. But that's not all. Here's something not many people talk about, but I must: pesticide residue. In the US, most papaya are sinless, labeled organic or GMO, and may contain residue from pesticides, especially a group called organophosphates. These chemicals are known neurotoxins, and they interfere with acetylcholine, a key neurotransmitter responsible for memory and learning. I had a patient once, a lifelong gardener. He told me he ate homegrown papaya every morning, half a fruit a day. But in recent years, he began experiencing what he called strange forgetfulness and felt he was slowing down. We ran some tests and found early signs of cognitive decline, even though he had no diabetes, no other obvious health issues. You see, eating papaya every day doesn't just load your body with sugar. You might also be accumulating compounds that promote inflammation or even neurotoxicity. So here's my advice. If you enjoy papaya, choose organic when possible. Treat it as a side, not a staple. Enjoy just a few small pieces after a balanced meal. And pair it with protein like Greek yogurt or chia seeds to slow the sugar absorption. Because every slice of papaya you eat today is a choice you're making for your clarity tomorrow. And I truly believe you deserve a tomorrow that's bright, focused, and full of life. We just talked about papaya. And now, I'd like to take you to another fruit. It's small, cheerful, sweet, and often associated with happiness and freshness. A fruit people love adding to fruit salads, fresh juices, or even frozen desserts in the summertime. I'm talking about pineapple. Just hearing the name, you can probably taste that bold, tangy sweet flavor and feel the juicy burst in your mouth. There's no denying that pineapple does have its benefits. It contains bromelain, an enzyme that helps digest protein, and it's rich in vitamin C, which supports your immune system. But here's what most people don't realize. Pineapple is also very high in natural sugars, especially fructose. And for people over 60, processing large amounts of fructose is no longer so simple. I once worked with an older couple. He was 68, she was 65, originally from Hawaii. Every morning, they had a habit of juicing fresh pineapple to go with breakfast. It helps us feel refreshed, she told me. But in recent years, both began experiencing difficulty focusing, mixing up appointments, misplacing things. We ran some tests, and sure enough, both showed early signs of insulin resistance and chronic low-grade inflammation, even though they didn't eat sweets or drink soda. Fructose from fresh fruit juice, even pineapple, can still have these effects if consumed every day. As I've said before, fructose isn't used directly by the body like glucose. It must be processed by the liver. And when there's too much, the liver turns the excess into visceral fat, the dangerous kind that wraps around organs and directly impacts your heart and brain. But it doesn't stop there. Excess fructose also causes oxidative stress in the brain, breaking down the structure of nerve cells, making it harder for the brain to talk to itself. That's part of why you might sometimes feel like you've lost your train of thought. Or as one of my patients once put it, I still remember things. It just feels like my brain needs more time to find them. And you don't have to let that happen sooner than it needs to. If you love pineapple, enjoy just a few small pieces after a full meal, not on an empty stomach, and avoid juicing it. Don't use pineapple as a snack to tide you over. And if you can, pair it with some protein or include it in a green salad to slow the sugar absorption. Pineapple is a delicious fruit, but when used the wrong way, it may cost you mental clarity. And you deserve to keep that clarity. Just by making one small shift. Eat less and eat it more mindfully. Now let's talk about a fruit that's found in almost every household. A fruit that's often called everyone's breakfast buddy. Easy to eat, easy to digest, convenient, and comforting. I'm talking about bananas. More specifically, overripe bananas. You see, when we were younger, we could eat bananas any time of day without thinking twice. But after 60, both the body and brain become more sensitive to sugar and to how quickly that sugar is absorbed. Let me paint a picture for you. A banana that's just ripe, still a little firm, slightly starchy, contains something called resistant starch, which helps slow down digestion. But once that banana becomes overripe, those black spots on the peel, that soft, mushy texture, most of that starch has turned into simple sugars, mainly glucose and fructose. So when you eat an overripe banana, especially on an empty stomach, your blood sugar spikes quickly, then crashes just as fast. And as I've reminded you throughout this video, that kind of sugar roller coaster is exactly what the aging brain struggles with most. I remember one of my patients, Mary, 71 years old. She loved starting her mornings with a banana and a cup of coffee. It's quick and easy on the stomach, she told me. But over time, she began feeling tired by 10 a.m., unable to focus, and sometimes oddly forgetful. Once we adjusted her breakfast, swapping the overripe banana for a slice of whole grain toast, a boiled egg, and just half a banana that was firm and just ripe, her energy and clarity noticeably improved. Now, bananas aren't bad, but when they're too ripe and eaten the wrong way, they can affect your memory, your focus, and your ability to stay alert throughout the day. So if you're a banana lover, and I fully support that, just remember, choose just ripe bananas, not soft and mushy ones. Avoid eating them on an empty stomach, especially in the morning. Pair them with protein or healthy fats like walnuts, Greek yogurt, or a boiled egg. Because mental clarity doesn't come from huge life changes. Sometimes it starts with something as small as a banana eaten the right way. And I truly believe you have the wisdom to make that choice for yourself. Thank you for still being here with me. That tells me something important. You truly care about your brain health. Not just for today, but for your future. And that's exactly why I'd like you to take a closer look at one last fruit. A fruit that hardly anyone suspects because it looks so gentle, light, and refreshing, with a subtle sweetness. I'm talking about pears. Whenever I bring up pears, most of my patients breathe a sigh of relief. At least pears are safe, right? They're mild, cooling, not like all those sugary fruits. But here's what many people don't realize. Pears, especially when they're very ripe or juiced, can become a sweet trap for older adults if not eaten carefully. First of all, pears don't actually have as low a glycemic index as many people think, especially when fully ripe. Eating pears on an empty stomach or in large amounts can cause your blood sugar to rise quickly, and then crash not long after. And as you've heard throughout this video, those blood sugar roller coasters disrupt brain function, affecting your alertness, memory, and ability to focus. One of my patients, very disciplined with his diet. No sweets, no soda, no fried food. But he had one habit: eating a large pear every night before bed. He told me, "It's soothing, helps me sleep." But strangely, he'd often wake up around 3 or 4 a.m., unable to fall back asleep. And during the day, he felt groggy and unfocused. We made a simple change. He started eating that pear after lunch. And at night, added a small handful of walnuts instead. Soon, he was sleeping deeper and thinking more clearly in the mornings. One small shift, but with a big impact. Also, if you drink store-bought pear juice, please be mindful. Most fruit juice 7, if labeled 100% natural, still contain fast-absorbing sugars. And for an aging brain, that kind of sugar spike is a shock it doesn't need. I'm not telling you to give up pears. And I know you don't need to live in extremes. But you do need to start seeing fruit with clearer eyes. And when it comes to pears, here's what I recommend. Eat them at lunchtime or in the afternoon, not on an empty stomach. Pair them with protein or healthy fats like low-fat cheese or a handful of nuts. Avoid pear juice, especially before bedtime, because your brain needs stability, not sudden swings. And you deserve mornings that feel clear, full of energy, and peaceful, just from one simple decision. Eat pears the right way, at the right time. This isn't restriction. It's self-love, pure and simple. We've walked together through a whole list of sweet, tempting fruits. And maybe by now, you're thinking, Doctor, is there anything left? Is there a fruit I can still enjoy freely? The answer is yes. But before we talk about the fruits that support your memory, there's one last fruit I want to talk about. And in my experience, this one causes more confusion than almost any other among older adults. That fruit is coconut. Coconut is undeniably one of nature's gifts. It comes in many forms: coconut water, coconut meat, coconut oil, coconut milk, and lately, even coconut chips and snacks labeled as organic and healthy. Many people see coconut as a superfood. And you've probably seen claims online saying coconut oil is good for your brain, maybe even prevents Alzheimer's. And you know what? There's some truth to that. Coconut contains a special kind of fat called MCTs, medium-chain triglycerides. These fats can be used by the brain for quick energy, especially when glucose metabolism is impaired. Some early research even suggests MCTs may temporarily support memory in people with mild cognitive decline. Wooten, this is where I need you to really understand. Not every coconut product is helpful, and not everyone should eat coconut freely. Because coconut, especially coconut meat, and coconut oil is also very high in saturated fat. And when saturated fat is consumed in excess, it can raise your LDL cholesterol, bad kind, that contributes to artery buildup and reduced blood flow to the brain. I had a patient once, a gentleman from the Philippines, who loved using coconut oil in his cooking. He told me, I heard it makes your memory sharper. But his blood tests showed high triglycerides and rising LDL cholesterol, and he had begun to show signs of mild cognitive decline. Once he cut back using coconut oil just 2 to 3 times a week instead of every day, and shifted to more leafy greens and omega-3 rich fish, his blood levels improved, and so did his memory. The takeaway? Even good things, when overdone, it can become a burden. If you enjoy coconut, here's what I recommend. Limit coconut oil in everyday cooking. Think of it as a flavor booster, not your main cooking oil. Avoid eating coconut meat too often. It contains the most concentrated saturated fat. Coconut water is okay occasionally as a refreshing drink, but it should not replace plain water as your daily hydration. And most importantly, look at your whole nutrition picture. Don't let one food dominate your beliefs or your plate. Coconut can support brain health if you understand it. But if you treat it like a magic potion and use it daily without thought, then sadly, that might be the very thing quietly harming your brain without you even realizing it. So, yes, love coconut, but love it wisely. Because mental clarity doesn't come from blind belief. It comes from knowledge and from the choices you make at the right time. We've just gone through 10 types of fruits that seem healthy, sweet, and familiar. But if eaten the wrong way or in excess, They can quietly become the silent enemies of memory after age 60. Are you surprised? Was there one fruit on the list that made you think, "Oh, I eat that every day," and never thought twice about it? If so, you're not alone. I've met hundreds of patients just like that. People who live carefully, avoid soda and processed foods, yet still quietly lose focus, mental clarity, and memory, simply because they didn't know that sugar, fructose, saturated fat, and preservative 7, when they come from fruit, can still impact the brain. But I didn't share this to scare you or make you feel guilty. No one ever taught us how to eat to protect our memory. We grew up hearing simple advice like, "Eat more fruit, it's good for you." But hardly anyone explained which fruit, when to eat it, or how much, especially after 60, when the body completely changes how it reacts to food. And that's why I'm here to gently remind you of this. You're never too old to heal, but you have to slow down enough to listen to your body. A slice of watermelon in the morning is very different from a big piece eaten late at night. A mango eaten with protein is very different from devouring a whole one on an empty stomach. A teaspoon of coconut oil in cooking is very different from treating it like a daily miracle supplement. Those little differences, they can be the line between a clear, energetic morning and a day clouded by brain fog. So if you're wondering, well, what can I still eat? Just remember, fruit isn't the problem. But your memory is more precious than any sweetness. You can still enjoy fruit, just try to. Focus on low glycemic fruits like berries, green apples, avocado, and oranges. Eat them after meals, not on an empty stomach. Pair fruit with healthy fats or protein to slow sugar absorption. Choose fresh, organic fruit when possible, and avoid juices or sweetened dried fruits. Because protecting your memory doesn't come from magic pills or miracle hacks. It starts with every bite you choose today. You can't control aging, but you can control how you age. And I'm here like a friend walking beside you to remind you of that truth. Gently, but deeply enough for you to carry it with you. Eat to remember. Live to stay clear. If this video helped you, please hit like and subscribe so we can meet again in the next video. And don't forget to share it with someone you care about, because memory is most precious when we protect it together.